Week 12 of the fantasy baseball season. Here's a few hitters I look to drop this week. The first guy, Gary Sanchez of the San Diego Padres. So we know Sanchez has bounced around this season in the Giants organization. Then he played a few games in the majors with the Mets. And now here at the Padres, he's had a decent run. But now over the last couple weeks here, he's starting to struggle. And the same old with Sanchez. High strikeout rate, low batting average. Yes, he's going to bring some pop, but he's hitting at the Mendoza line. So on the season, 6 home runs, 16 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 200 average, and a 243 on base. But the last 2 weeks here, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 171 average, and a 227 on base. So he struck out 14 times in the last 41 at-bats in the last 2 weeks here, Sanchez. I know catch is a weak position. I know the power numbers are going to be legit, especially in a lineup with all those good hitters, even though for whatever reason, this Padre team's struggling this season hitting the baseball. But right now, Sanchez, he really hasn't done anything. And he's in a big slump. 2 games here for the San Diego Padre team. 0 for his last 14. June 13th versus the Guardians, 1 for 4. A home and 3 RBIs. June 14th versus the Guardians, 0 for 3. 15th versus the Guardians, 0 for 1. June 16th versus Tampa, 0 for 4. June 17th versus Tampa, 0 for 3. And June 18th versus Tampa, 0 for 1 in that one. So right now, not hitting the baseball is Gary Sanchez. He's pretty much a home run or an out, not getting on base. And I know he had a couple week stretch where he's one of the better hitters at the catching position. But right now, he's fizzled out, and he's a guy we drop this week. The next hitter, Brent Rooker of the Oakland Athletics. So Rooker, it's been an up and down season here. He got off to a monster start in April, but he's really slowed down over the last month. On the year, 13 home runs, 38 RBIs, 29 runs scored, a stolen base, a 255 average, and a 356 on base. So the on-base percentage is solid for Rooker. He's still drawing walks, but right now not driving in runs really, not showing the power like he did, and there's really no reason for fantasy owners to own him unless he can get the power back up, because over the last month now, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 205 average, and a 283 on base. So that's not going to get the job done for owners. At least if he had some home run power with the low average, he'd be more worth it. And he's striking out a ton as well as Rooker over the last few games. 13th versus Tampa, 2 for 3, an RBI. June 14th versus Tampa, 1 for 3. June 15th versus Tampa, 0 for 4. June 16th versus Philly, 0 for 4. June 17th versus Philly, 0 for 2. And June 18th versus Philly, 1 for 3. So right now, the last few ball games, he's striking out at a crazy rate with 9 strikeouts in the last 4 games here for Rooker. So right now, not getting good contact. He's getting fooled up there at the plate, and he's not really bringing much to owners. So to be owned in 41% of leagues is still surprising to me. The next hit is Vinny Pasquinto of the Kansas City Royals. So Pasquinto, he came up last season. He was pretty solid for this Royal team, but unfortunately now he's out for the season, and he's not a guy that I think has value to keep in even dynasty or keeper leagues, is Pasquinto, but still owned in 49% of leagues. So on the year, it's 9 home runs, 26 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 247 average, and a 324 on base. So his numbers weren't great, but they weren't horrible as well here for Pasquinto. So now out for the season, like I said, is Pasquinto with the torn labrum, and hopefully that shoulder heals up next season and can go back to being 100%, because last year, in a small sample size, in 258 at-bats, 10 home runs, 26 RBIs, and a 295 average. So this season, similar, almost 27 more at-bats last year than he had. So his numbers were on pace for about 25-30 home runs with Pasquinto, and unfortunately he torn the labrum, which is not an easy injury to come back from. So the last few games before he went down, June 6th in Miami, 0 for 4. June 7th at the Marlins, 1 for 4. And June 9th at the Orioles, 0 for 3. So hopefully he recovers. Hopefully he gets back to form. And like I said, next season he definitely could be a sleeper for fantasy owners. But he's not much of a player where I'm going to keep him the whole year now, even in Dynasty or Keeper League. So right now, drop him back and keep an eye on him next season for your draft. So whatever the case may be, the next hit is Royce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins. So we know the Twins need offense, but Royce Lewis, it's 1 game playing and 1 game sitting for him. And right now, once again, we haven't seen much out of him. He's not going to get a lot of playing time. It's going to be hard to trust him in fantasy baseball, obviously, is Royce Lewis. If he's only going to play 3-4 times a week on the season, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 281 average, and a 305 on base, and his strikeout rate is pretty high as well, is Royce Lewis. 20 strikeouts already and only 57 at-bats, but the power is definitely legit. We know in the minor leagues he was tearing it up, coming off the torn ACL and rehab appearances. But right now, like I said, he's not playing every day for the most part as Lewis, and that's definitely frustrating to own a guy like that. He's only started 4 games in the last 7 days. So June 13th versus Milwaukee, 1 for 3. June 14th versus the Brewers, 0 for 2. June 15th versus Detroit, 1 for 4 a run. June 16th versus Detroit, 0 for 3. June 17th versus Detroit, 0 for 2 a run. And June 18th versus Detroit, 1 for 2 when he sat out the 19th ball game. So right now, very frustrating. Like I said, this guy definitely can hit the ball and get things going for this Twin team, but for whatever reason, they don't trust him as an everyday option right now, where he's only playing 4 or 5 times a week at most, and you want consistent players that are going to play 6-7 times a week. So right now, while Lewis isn't getting that much playing time, unfortunately, even though he's still a player to keep an eye on, I would drop him right now for the time being. And the 5th and final hitter I look to drop this week here is Anthony Rendon of the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels, they just have no luck, it seems like, with these players. They signed them to big contracts after putting up monster numbers. And we know Anthony Rendon was one of the best hitters in the National League for seasons with the Nats, but the last few years have been a train wreck for him with injuries. And once again, he's been put back on the injury list. And even this year, the power hasn't been there. The average hasn't really been there. Homer, 21 RBIs. 22 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 248 average, but the on base has been good with a 366 on base, but everything else he hasn't been bringing it is Rendon. And now once again on the injured list with a left wrist contusion, even though we saw Peter Alonso have that. He only missed 10 days, and Rendon maybe can miss 10 days to 2 weeks, but still he's not a player I trust. The injuries have been piling up over the last few seasons, and he really hasn't been to form at all with this Angel team like he was with the Nationals. So the last few games before he went down, June 12th at the Rangers, 0 for 4. June 13th at the Rangers, 0 for 5 a run. June 14th at the Rangers, 1 for 5 a rib. And June 15th at the Rangers, 0 for 3. So right now on the injured list, not doing much this season as it was is Rendon. And he's an easy hitter to drop this week. I know people think he could get back to form like he was a few seasons ago, but I just don't see with the injuries and him getting up there in age. So that's a few hitters I look to drop here in week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.